Welcome back. We got another episode of Let 'Em Ride for you. We're going to be going over the 3-game WNBA slate for Friday, July 12th. We're going to break down and analyze each of those games. We'll talk about which way that I'm leaning as far as the points and the spread. And then any plays that I put in myself for those games, I will list down below in the pinned comment. So don't forget to check back in. That way you don't miss out on any of those. And then let's recap our picks from Thursday before we dive into the games tonight. We did take the Sky in the first half, catching the 7 points. They go into halftime up 40-38, so this does hit for us. We just did that one pick for this game. It was just the 1-game slate, so just the one bet. 1-0 on the night. Can't complain. We'll take it. We are up 6.76 units on the season now. We're sitting at a 31-24 record overall. So hey, last 3 nights, 1-0. Let's try to get some more tonight. Let's get some more wins under our belt, guys. Let's see what we got in store here. So for our first game, we have the Mercury taking on the Fever. The Mercury are laying 2.5. We have an over-under sitting at 172.5. And the Mercury have won 3 straight, covering in all 3, but they've done so in games against the Sparks and then the Wings twice. These are 2 lower-tier teams, obviously. Phoenix is 12-10 on the year, but just 4-6 on the road. They're 14-8 to the number. They're 6-4 to the number in road games. Now, the Fever are 2-4 in their last 6, but those 2 wins came over the Liberty at home last Saturday, and then over this Mercury team in Phoenix. Indiana is 9-14 on the season. They're 5-5 at home straight up. They are 12-11 to the number, 6-4 to the number at home. So the Mercury are going to be without Charisma Osborne, Shug Sutton, and Diana Taurasi for this one, while the Fever will be without Tammy Fogg-Bentley for the 3rd straight game. Over the last 5 games, the Fever ranked 8th in the W across the board in offensive, defensive, and net rating. The Mercury have the best offensive rating over that time, with the 2nd to worst defense. So they're balancing out at a middle of the pack 6th in net rating. These two, they met at the end of June in Phoenix for the only matchup so far between these two. The Mercury led by 11 at the half in that one, but then they could only muster 33 points on their way to being outscored by 17 in the second half, for what resulted in a 6-point Fever win. The Mercury, they live by the deep ball. We've talked about this before in these videos. They attempt the 3rd most per game. 32% of their points scored are coming from threes. That's the 4th highest overall, but they're only 6th in shooting percentage from deep. Opponents are shooting the 3rd most threes on Indiana this year at the 5th highest shooting percentage, so the looks are going to be there for Phoenix. It's just on them to knock them down. And this has been a common theme watching the Mercury throughout this year. When the perimeter shooting is on and they are knocking down their shots, man, they are a force to be reckoned with. They're tough to beat because they have Grinder down low as well. They just seem to fall in love with that outside shot at times, and it's to their own detriment at times. Sometimes they're just chucking them up there left and right, and they're shooting like 20% overall for the game, and they just keep chucking them up there. With a force like Grinder down low, you would expect the Mercury to be a more inside-out focused team, and at times you see that from them, and I feel like that's when they are at their most dominant. And you would expect them to be a better rebounding team as well, but like neither of these have reigned true consistently throughout the year. Phoenix is just 9th in points scored from the paint, and they're 2nd to last rebounding the ball. Look, to me, this makes no sense. I mean, I know Brittany Griner's been hurt for a good chunk of the year, but they've had her back now for, I want to say, 10 games at least. It just makes no sense. She's like the Shaq of the WNBA. She's just so much bigger. You watch the games, watch Phoenix against these teams. She's just so much bigger than them. They should be dominating in the paint. And then they have that perimeter play to where I don't know, this Mercury team is confusing. They should be a lot more dominant than they are, I feel like. The Fever have looked like a different team than what we saw at the beginning of the year. And as much as some of the haters like to discredit her, Caitlin Clark has been a huge part of this. She's averaging 18 points per game, 7 rebounds, and 11.5 assists per game over her last 6. Her ball movement, her court vision, it makes this offense dangerous. It's just the defense that is lacking still for Indiana. They're giving up 87 points per game. That's the 2nd most in the W. Teams are shooting the 4th highest shooting percentage against them while making the 4th most threes against them as well. The Fever have played better at home after a rough start to the year. They've won 5 straight before the recent letdown to the Mystics in their last game. They are 6-4 to the number in Indiana. The Fever have gone just 4-8 straight up on the road this season, but they are also, or the Mercury, have gone just 4-6 straight up on the road this season, but they are also 6-4 to the number when they play away from Phoenix. So all in all, even with this being a revenge spot for the Mercury, I like the Fever catching the points at home in this one. The Mercury will be without multiple players, including their legend starting at the point guard position, and then a key role piece in Shook Sutton as well. The Fever are looking to bounce back at home after that loss to the Mystics that saw them erase a 21-point deficit, and they cut that lead to just 3 with under a minute to play, and they couldn't pull it out. So yeah, I like Indiana at home with the points. And for the total, it's hard to look at anything other than the over with these two teams, their lack of defensive prowess, and then the ability of both the offenses. However, once we get into these 170 and above totals, you have to start being leery, as it takes only one of those 15 to 16 point quarters that we see in the W at times to just throw everything off. So I would lean over in this one. I'm not sure I make it anywhere with that though. For a player prop, I'm looking at Caitlin Clark under 19.5 points. I know we just talked about how great she's been, but she's getting it done in just every aspect of the game. She's not going out there just jacking up shots, trying to score 30, 40 points on the opposing team. And if anything, it seems like she's more or less trying to get the entirety of the offense involved and get that ball movement flowing. We can get this at minus 130 right now. It's a little juiced, but she's come in under this line in 8 of her last 10, landing on the hook in only 1 of those unders. She hasn't been forcing things as much as we saw earlier in the year. She's letting her shots come to her when they do. And then, like I said, the Fever are thriving on Clark's ball vision as she's looking to get her teammates involved early and often. So I like this under 19.5 points. Next up, we have the Las Vegas Aces taking on the Atlanta Dream. The Aces are 13-point favorites with the over-under sitting at 166.5. Now, Las Vegas has won 8 of their last 9, and after a 6-6 start to the year, they find themselves at 14-7, 4th overall in the W. They are 6-3 on the road straight up, but only 4-5 to the number. They outlast the Storm in Seattle in their last game on Wednesday, 84-79. They're on the road here again for the second game of a 3-game road trip. Now, the Dream have now lost 5 straight, and they are back at home after a 3-game road trip of their own. They find themselves right back on the road after this one for 2 more before the Olympic break. They are only 3-7 straight up and 2-8 to the number at home this year. The Aces come in with a clean injury slate while the Dream are down Ryan Howard, Jordan Canada, Aerial Powers, Letitia Amir. I think that's it. The Dream upset the Aces in the lone meeting between these two as well, so you know there's a revenge factor in the back of the mind for Las Vegas here. The Aces were without Chelsea Gray for that one. They lost 78-74. And while the Dream were without Jordan Canada, they did have Aerial Powers and Ryan Howard in that game. Vegas shot only 36% from the field, 29% from deep. Obviously, these are numbers that we shouldn't expect to see this time around again. The Aces are hitting from the restricted area at a 67% rate, that's second best in the W, and they make the most field goals from outside of that restricted area in the paint as well. They are making the most corner threes and shooting the above the break 3 at the 3rd highest shooting percentage in the W. Atlanta is dead last in defending corner threes, giving up the most. They're middle of the pack in terms of defending the above the break 3. Atlanta, they like to shoot from the mid-range. They score the highest percentage of their points from there in the whole W. While Vegas gives up the 3rd most makes there. Atlanta has struggled in a major way offensively, though. They shoot the lowest shooting percentage from the field overall. They're making the 3rd fewest field goals from downtown. They are last in offensive rating over their last 5 games, 7th defensively, and then they have a net rating of negative 9.5. That's second to last. The Aces in that same time frame, they're second offensively. They're 4th defensively. They have a net rating of 14.2. That's first in the W. So it's a lot to lay with a road team, but I can't look any other way but Vegas here. I don't know how you can't. They are red hot. They're playing like the best team in the W, and they're facing an injury-riddled team with a ton of question marks on the offensive end. So I don't know if I can get there myself to play this line, but if I did, it would only be with the Aces. Then for the total, I'd slightly lean over on behalf of Vegas and what we know they are capable of. But Atlanta and that offense is shaky. It scares me. Honestly, I think that I would like the team total under for Atlanta. It's at 75.5. I think I would like that more than the full game total here. Atlanta has failed to hit 70 in their last 2 games. With the injuries piling up and the depth fading away, I could see scoring against this Vegas team being a struggle for them. And for our last game on the slate, we have the Minnesota Lynx taking on the Seattle Storm. The Storm are laying 5 with the over-under sitting at 154. Now, Lynx will have the rest advantage, but they're on the road for their 2nd straight game before returning home for their last 2 before the break. They're coming in off of back-to-back wins without Nafisha Collier. She's listed as doubtful for Friday as well. They're 16-6 straight up. They've come back down to earth as far as covering the numbers concerned. They were covering machines at the beginning stages of this season. But they're just 2-4 to the number now in their last 6 games. The Storm are 14-8, both straight up and against the spread. They've covered in 13 of those 14 wins. Seattle is playing in their 8th of 9 straight at home. They're coming off of a loss to the Aces in that last one. They're 5-2 straight up and to the number during this homestand so far. The Storm come in all hands on deck. They got no injuries reported. This line opened with Seattle laying as little as 2.5 to start, but has since been bet up to 5. This is the 4th meeting between these two teams. Minnesota has won all 3 times prior, twice at home and once in Seattle. The first 2 losses for Seattle came back-to-back to open the year, and they struggled to start this season. They opened up 1-3 before rattling off 6 straight wins and getting themselves back on track. In the last 5 games, the Storm are the only team that can make the claim of having a top 3 offense and top 3 defense, and they sit at 2nd with a net rating of 12.7. The Lynx have had the best defense in that time, but the 2nd to worst offense for a net rating of 4.4, middle of the pack-ish, 5th in the W. The Storm are the worst 3-point shooting team in the W. They are dead last in shooting percentage, while the Lynx rank 1st. But both of these teams are excellent defending the perimeter. Minnesota is 2nd in opponents' 3-pointers made, Seattle 3rd. The Storm, they don't heavily rely on perimeter play. They average the 2nd most points in the paint. They're shooting at the 3rd highest percentage from the restricted area, and they're making the 2nd most field goals outside of that restricted area inside of the paint. The Lynx are holding opponents to the 2nd and 4th lowest shooting percentages in each of those categories respectively, but without Fee for these last 2 games, we've seen those numbers jump up to the 3rd and 6th highest. Both teams generate a lot of turnovers, and over their last 5 games, the Lynx are they're only 8th in turnovers per game, with the Storm only 7th. So these teams are giving up the ball more frequently than you would expect, with both of them being more top-tier teams. Seattle is scoring the 3rd most points off of those turnovers, while the Lynx are scoring the most this year. So it's going to be interesting to see which side takes advantage of this more. Both teams, like I said, they're great at generating turnovers, and both teams are kind of giving up the ball quite a bit here lately. These two are pretty even statistically, with Seattle having the stronger low post presence and Minnesota the better perimeter shooting team. So with the strength of both defenses in mind, with the offenses in mind, I'm going to side with the home team who's playing better on offense as a whole right now. So I'm going to back the Storm with that 5 points. For a total, man, it's another one where that number is low. Generally, when it gets this low, usually I stay off of it. Now, I did just put in an under 156 with Minnesota the other day, and it did hit. But anytime you start looking below 156, 155, it's going to be a sweat. You see these teams going little spurts offensively, and you really need both of these teams to hit under 20 for every quarter to be able to hit these kind of numbers at an under. So for me, it's more of a sweat than it's worth most nights, in my opinion. But with that said, these numbers are typically super low like this when they are for a reason. The strength of both defenses, the fact that Seattle has hit the under in 3 of their last 4, Minnesota in 7 of their last 9. I couldn't look any way but under here, but like I said, I'm probably not going to play this one myself. So that's just about going to wrap it up here for another episode of Let 'Em Ride. Before we get out of here, though, let's recap what we went over in tonight's video and talk about which way we're leaning for these games right here. I got my eye on the Fever catching the 2.5 points. I'm looking at Caitlin Clark under 19.5 points. I'm looking at the Aces laying 13. Also got my eye on the Dream Team total under 75.5. Then I'm looking at the Storm laying the 5 as well. Now, all 5 of those picks are just leans. I have not made any of these plays official yet. But if I do and when I do, and if I find anything else that I like before tip-off, I'm going to throw all of that down in the pinned comment later on. So make sure you check back in so you can see if you'd like to ride along with me. Or maybe you check back in, you're like, bro, all those picks are trash, man. I'm going to go ahead and do the opposite. Whatever you guys decide to do, make sure you throw them down in the comments, man. I love to see what you guys have cooked up. And I love to celebrate your wins with you whenever you guys cash. That is the best, man. I love that. Hey, I also have some news coming up for you guys tomorrow. Be sure you check back in. That way you can catch it. We got a major announcement coming. Big moves. I'm super excited to share it with you guys. But you got to come back tomorrow to see what it is. All right, hey guys, if you enjoyed the video today, you liked the content, you found it helpful, you found it useful in any kind of way, please do not forget to smash that like button down there for me. It is so helpful. Helps this channel continue to grow. It helps me bring you guys more content the more that we grow. And if you can hit subscribe, if you have not already, it's definitely appreciated. That way you don't miss out on any of the content that we're dropping. And if you can hit share, also definitely appreciated. Hey guys, that's going to do it here. I'll see you guys on the next one. Have a great night. Bet responsibly. Let's go get a bag.